Hello, welcome to Smileys. Tonight we're discussing our first episode / discussion on Forge of Darkness, the first book in the Kharkanas trilogy by Steven Erikson. No shit. Tonight we are discussing the Prelude, actually, which is not even chapter 1. It's before chapter 1. As you can tell, we're going to be quite thorough. So, our goal for this episode is to outline how we are going to approach the series, and more pertinently, why we're going to approach the series in such a manner. And hopefully not bore you to death with me nerding out over Galan and Fisher. So, I'm joined by Maura. Hello, Maura.
Hi, Lee. So, are you excited to start this
Quite.
Forge of Darkness reading? Yeah? Right. So, do you have a count of how many times you read the Prelude so far?
I don't. I lost track, to be honest. I never really counted. The first time when I read the book the first time, at least like 2 or 3 when I did the essays, and then probably like twice or thrice for this. So 5 or more times is probably good enough.
Yeah.
And I still find new things in it, by the way. It's really dense. It's very poetic.
Yeah, I mean, even today I was like noticing some minor line about the blindness which comes back after some time. There is a bit about repeating motif of blindness, so that's something I picked up only today.
A lot of motifs repeat in it. We'll get to that.
Yeah. So if you ask me, I don't know. I listen to it like constantly, now and then. Because the audio narration is so good, especially these two pages. It comes to like 6-7 minutes. And it's fun. Like, instead of a song, I can just listen to the Prelude once in a while. So that's how much I like it. And I'm so happy we're going to be discussing this today. And what's the spoiler scope for this episode?
For the most part, we're doing Book of the Fallen, obviously. The novels, if need be, I don't know if it'll be necessary, but, we'll just be...
There's at least one guy who's important there, yeah.
Probably. And the Prelude of Forge of Darkness. Obviously.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. No rest of Kharkanas, no other books. Just this. Just these 16 and a bit books. Yeah, just
okay.
Child's play. So, to kick off the discussion, I think, which is interesting because I just said we're doing an episode on Prelude, but we're actually going to start even before then. So, Maura, would you like to tell us who is actually talking in the Prelude?
Oh, it's a huge surprise. It's some guy called Blind Galan, who is apparently a poet. And I think it's alluded to probably once in Book of the Fallen, or maybe twice, or once, or if that. It's just a name. It's a mythical figure from somewhere in the deep past, like 100,000 years ago, with a diced history. So that's the guy who's talking to us, Blind Galan. Yeah? And who is he talking to? Not really. I mean, we have an audience stand-in.
Who is Fisher Keldath, the bard, the guy, the superhero bard, the guy whose poems you've been reading the entire way up till the Hound, and he's like shows in page, holy shit, it's that guy. And so, if you've read the novels, you probably know more about him. But for our purposes, he's just a bard / poet who's like really good at poetry. So
yeah. Is he like name dropped only in Told the Hounds, right? Somewhere in between? Not even before that.
He doesn't appear before then. He's just on epigraphs, not like in the books.
Yeah. Right. So that is Fisher. And so both of them are poets and they're talking to each other. So what doesn't stand a chance if 2 poets talk to each other? Oh, I just love this so much.
Truth doesn't stand a chance.
Right.
What hope is truth? Which we'll get to again later. We'll allude to it later, but it's a very interesting framing because to get into our first discussion, the Book of the Fallen is framed differently. The Gardens of the Moon starts off by saying, now these ashes have grown cold, and we, whoever we is, open the old book. And later, at the end of the Crippled Goat, we learn that it is an actual book that you're reading. So, neat. But that is not alluded to throughout. Like, save for the opening poems and a bit of third-person narration in a few books, it's just another fantasy series. There's no allusion to it being metatextual or, being acrodiegetic. It's just a fantasy series. Maybe it has a narrator, maybe not. Apparently, it's a book within the world, which reframed everything. Here, you don't get that. Here, from page 1, from line 1, you're gonna get bullshitted. This is a framed narrative from the very beginning. As Mara said, it's Galan, blind Galan, a Theist poet who we've never heard of before, I'm sure. He's just some guy. Don't worry about him.
Okay.
Talking to another guy who's also a poet, and we've also never heard of him before. And we're just watching. Or, another framing through which you can view it is Fisher, the other guy, is telling you about his encounter with Galan. Or a few different things, which we'll get to later. But that's for later. So, I alluded to this earlier, but who are these people? Okay, well, fine. We told us who Blind Galan is and who Fisher Kelteth is, but what's Kharkanas anyway?
That's as far as Book of the Fallen is concerned, that's like the first city of the entire world because darkness came first.
Yeah.
And then, please let's just stick to Book of the Fallen here. So, darkness came first, and then there came light, and then there was shadow. So Kharkanas was the first city of darkness, who was the city was taken care of by Mother Dark, and she had 3 sons. Oh God, I can't do this. Anumandarake, Anderist, and Silkus Ruin. So these are the 3 sons, and and something happened, and she turned away, or the children abandoned her. We are not sure what happened. There was a rift, and Kharkanas is closed. There is. Because it's been a while since I read Crippled God and Dust of Darkness. Do you want to tell me what exactly we learn about Kuralgale in the last 2 books?
So, the reason attributed to Mother Turk's turning away is Andy partaking of Tiam, i.e. turning into soul-taken dragons. Or
the children being angry with her because she consorted with light and they got angry and abandoned her. That's also
that's another framing. Yeah, that is the Sheikh interpretation of the myth, I think.
Yeah, they're all equally valid. So,
speaking of the Sheikh, by the way, the Sheikh are actually our main way into Kharkanas. Well, literally, our main way into Kharkanas. Incidentally, bearing the name of our narrator. The road to Galan. Very subtle there. And their myths are basically our way into the myth of the Ante. Because other than that, we see flashbacks or murals or paintings or stuff like that, mostly from old Andy, like Endeslan or Spinactoram, or even Anamander, who sometimes sold the keys in Told the Hound. Or Selkas, just doing his thing. But the Sheikh are the first time we view things from a more internal perspective, a more hands-on perspective, because the Sheikh, the way I like to view it, is that they get a very nasty reality check very quickly, because they've been told about the wise city of Kharkanas as the first city of darkness, and the greatest city in the world, and how the Dorsan Rill is this black river, and all of that, and it's completely unsullied, and then they go there, and it's ruined, it's abandoned, there's nothing there. And Twilight breaks down weeping because Blind Galan lied. Hold that thought.
Can I?
Yes.
Can you hold it a bit more? Because I was just thinking, we are going on discussing about the framing of Kharkanas and all that, and we still don't have a conclusion, and we're still 2 books away from the conclusion. So all this is just us doing our best with what we have.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of like we reached Told the Hounds before Dust of Dreams or Crippled God was published, and I don't know, any guess you would have done at that point would all have been wrong, right? So there is a chance this is all wrong. There is a chance that, Blind Galan has something to do with the story itself. Who knows? So let's just keep that thought aside. we'll come back to the point you were making about the Sheikh.
So, and the Sheikh give us another view of how everything was created, right? Because the myths we had so far, even in like the novels, is darkness and light somehow merged and they created shadow, right? There was a marriage, or the bastard offspring of light and dark. You know, how light was created to banish darkness. Eventually they were entangled in a fight that neither, well, which is obviously allegorical, but the point stands. Entangled in a fight which neither side could win. And from that struggle was born Shadow, the Diatheater. The Sheikh give us a wholly different interpretation, that in Twilight was born Shadow, that the Sheikh are the progenitor of the Eater, because, now, in general, I should say, this becomes important in Kharkanas, but the Sheikh in the Book of the Fallen are, for the most part, meant to be Andi, but they're never specified. Beyond the royals, which are like Twilight, the Rise, and the Watch, who have supposedly royal Andi blood, the others aren't specified. So, just bringing this up in case it becomes important.
Yeah.
And in the Sheikh myths, it is said that Scarabandari Blood Eye, saw in them the sins not of the father, i.e. not Father Light, but of the mother, who seduced light. So darkness was the first perpetrator that seduced quote-unquote light, which then spawned shadow through the Sheikh. And then the Sheikh were ordered by Scarabandari, who was the king of the Eater, to hold the first shore, which we later see as Lightfall, so that the Eater make good their escape. And then along comes Silkas Ruin and Galan to open the road to Galan for the Sheikh to escape. Does that have any semblance of truth? We have absolutely no clue.
Yeah.
Is that any more or less valid than what we see in Kharkanas or in the Andi myths? No clue. What we do see is that quite a lot of the myths that are present, both in the Book of the Fallen and the novels, for instance, in Orbs of the Throne, when Orchid and the group explore the murals of Moonspawn, contradict each other a lot. So it should not come as any surprise that Kharkanas is going to do the same, especially when the Prelude outright tells you that it's going to.
Yeah.
So, I think this is a fairly good segue into more interesting matters. Do you have anything to add, Maura?
Yeah, no, this is fine. Like, do you want to, these are the people we remember, whom we are seeing their prequel parts here, right? All the Sons of Darkness. So we're going to meet them here. If you see the Dramatis, we're going to see Draconis, Osirk, and Urusander, whoever this guy is. And there was something interesting in the priesthood of Mother Dark, because they have the Sheikh Monastery, which has two categories. There is the Yanis and Yedan.
Yedan, yep.
Yeah, so that's quite interesting.
Which, by the way, is incredibly weird for me, because Yanis is a Greek name, but whatever.
But it's Yanis, it's not Yan. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have something called like the highborn families and greater houses and lesser houses and all this. So,
and holds.
I don't know. Sounds like
which actually matches fairly well to the magic system, which is interesting, and we'll get to that eventually.
Does it? That really?
Yeah, there's holds, the highest born families, like the Purake hold, or the, and then there's the greater houses and the lesser houses and the whatnot. So,
I don't know. They're just reusing terms here.
We're not going to get into that now, if at all. Actually, I'm not very. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the actual prelude?
I guess so.
Right? So it's full of quotable quotes.
Yeah. Most quotable quotes.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know, we have made lots of like spoofs on the shared posting subreddit. So it's always fun. It's always easy to rewrite.
Yep.
So
I brought up the opening of the Book of the Fallen earlier, and I had good reason for that because, as I said, it says we opened the old book. So it's a framed narrative, but through which we are, at the end of the day, the final lens. It's us. It's a book, sure. It's written by somebody, but we are the ones reading it. The way Kharkanas is framed, the very first line is, so you have found me and would know the tale. Which, for starters, introduces a narrator from the get-go. So you know someone's narrated this tale. We don't know who that is yet, but we know someone is. So someone is narrating the tale to you. And then the next line goes, when a poet speaks of truth to another poet, what hope as truth? Right? And immediately, whoever this poet is, because now we know it's not he speaking, it's not whoever the narrator is not speaking to us. He's speaking to another poet. And he pretty much immediately does away with truth. And this is going to get brought up a lot in this prelude, it's like 4 or 5 times. How this poet guy, who we know is to be Galan, completely just does away with any semblance of truth or objective truth. And the Fisher has spoken in the past about how he speaks about whatever, lies, truths, rumors, half-truths, whatever, because the point isn't the objective truth, but how much of a good story it makes. And he has also said that poetic truth is a higher truth in another series.
Yeah.
So our mystery narrator then poses a question. Does memory bow before invention, or is the inverse true? Does one find memory in invention, or will you find invention in memory? And then he goes off on a tangent about basically people like me who obsess over tiny details and try desperately to square away Kharkanas' Book of the Fallen. And basically says, will the measure of greatness be weighed solely in the details? Perhaps so, if details make up the full weft of the world, if themes are nothing more than the composite of lists perfectly ordered and unerringly rendered, and if I should kneel before invention as if it is memory made perfect. Now, you know that this poet is not going to, the first thing he says is, you have found me and would know the tale. You know he's going to bullshit you. You know he's not, he did away with truth just now. He is not the type of person to do away with details. He's not going to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to be extra careful in detailing this. I'm going to make sure I cross-check my sources. No, he's not. And, what's the immediate quote after that, Maura? Do you remember?
Do I look like a man who would kneel? That one?
Yep. So as you can imagine. Yep.
Whenever Erikson writes these narrators, I always like it when they have a strong personality. You can't deny it. It's no a neutral narrator or anything. Very few books do that, where the narrator has, even if they're not a character, it's just a narrator, it still has a very strong voice, a very strong character. And we're already seeing that with Galan, right? Even with all there's no hope for truth and all those things. It's these things do I look like a man who would kneel? And, he's quite an opinionated, quite an attitude-filled fellow for an old blind poet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that makes it fun, right?
So there's a momentary thematic break here of, he basically tells you, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to Fisher, a poet. And he knows he's privy to information that you're not privy to, because he's a poet and we understand each other better. 2, truth is a done away with concept. I am not going to bother. If you came here for history, tough shit. 3, he is not going to bow before either memory nor invention. He's going to make use of both. And that comes up a lot later. And 4, screw the details. Themes are much more important to this story than something else, because it is a poetic tale at the end of the day, right? And then he starts again. There are no singular tales. Nothing that stands alone is worth looking at. Right?
Yeah.
So,
I think a different way of putting that is, there are facts and there are alternate facts, because Book of the Fallen is one tale of what happened, and here we're going to see another tale of what happened. There is no singular way of looking at things. So there is no single story telling us what happened. So
no objective truth, one might say.
Yeah. So I mean, if you think about it, these are things which are really hard to let go, isn't it? If you're reading anything, any work of fiction written by one person, you would want to have some kind of cohesion and some kind of, the story is telling one thing throughout. Even if the narrator is unreliable, you would hope that the story is a cohesive single story. Like one thing happened, regardless of what you come to know. But here, there is no such solid ground to stand on. There are absolutely no single tales. There are just, I think the best phrase I can think of is alternate facts. We're dealing with the second set of truth here. Right? Yeah.
My other take on singular tales is that it's, because this comes up later again, is there is no singular person which you can pin on this. It's not like an Odyssey. It's not an Odyssey. It's not an Iliad. It's not Ulysses. It's not Beowulf. It's Kharkanas. It's not a character. It's a place.
Yeah.
It's a timeline. It is a tragedy, but this is not about a single person. It's not a Nomandaris, which gets brought up later. It's not, about one person. It's about multiple. It's about events. It's about crises. It's about themes. It's about stuff. It's not going to be about history. It's not about okay, this is what this guy did. It's not a biography. None of that. Because someone stands alone is not worth looking at. And then he goes forth. You and me, i.e. me and the poet I'm talking to, we know this. So we don't. We're the audience. We're not privy to this. Because, if someone told you nothing that stands alone is worth looking at, you'd probably look at him like, what the fuck is this guy saying? But these two guys know this because they are poets and they have studied this art before. We could fill 1,000 scrolls recounting the lives of those who believe they are each both beginning and end. Those who fit the totality of the universe into small wooden boxes, which they then tuck under one arm. You have seen them marching past, I'm sure. Just take a moment to deconstruct that metaphor.
No, go on.
It's fitting. Just give me 1 second. Just take a moment to deconstruct that metaphor. Fitting the totality of the universe into small wooden boxes.
Yeah.
He's mocking you to your face, by the way. He's outright mocking you to your face for trying to reconcile this with anything else Steve has written so far, but they have somewhere to go, and wherever that place is, why it needs them, and failing their dramatic arrival, it would surely cease to exist.
He's not mocking here. He's outright showing snark.
Take it away, please.
I just love this so much. This is a bit which I was thinking that if you think about it in a sort of outside the text, it's like Erikson talking to Esselmont is what I felt. This section and the next few bits, I keep thinking that this is, even though Erikson told us that, he was not really thinking about talking to Esselmont here, I don't care, but it makes so much sense to me that, because it's these two, right? These are the two co-creators, and they have, they have their set of values. They have. It's completely possible that Erikson and Esselmont could fill 1,000 scrolls recounting the lives of those who believe. This whole thing, it would suit them so well, given their long friendship and everything they've done together. So this is the thing I was thinking. It goes a bit meta. There are so many places where Erikson is straight up talking to you. Galan and Fisher are just there. But, you can just hear him telling you that this is what is going to happen. And in between, he goes on a digression to talk to Esselmont, to address him and say, we both know what this is going on. It's it can be read in so many multiple ways. Yeah, please go on.
And our mystery narrator later has the audacity to ask, is my laughter cynical and derisive? Just like, it's fine, whatever.
Oh, he's so fun. Yeah.
Yes, it is, damn you. Yes, it is. Yes.
You know what would blow our mind? If like Fisher pops up in Told the Hounds. If all of a sudden Blind Galan comes, as you know. Is he there? Please tell me, is he there? I don't know. I don't even remember. I can't even spoil if I want to. Right. I hope he comes in any of these books.
I don't remember what you're talking about exactly.
About like Fisher came in Told the Hounds. Like we just knew him as a poet.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden he was a character in Told the Hounds.
Yes.
What if Blind Galan is also someone who is like a character in Kharkanas?
He addresses this later. Just give me. We'll get to that.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Right.
Do I sigh and remind myself yet again that truths are like seeds hidden in the ground? And should you tend to them, who may say what wild life will spring into view? Something, singular tales. Something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this motif of truth being done away with is brought up again and again, and it's gonna get brought up again, trust me. But you can see this guy's hammering you in the face with like, I'm going to make things up. Stop worrying about it, please. Prediction is folly, belligerent assertion, pathetic.
Yeah, this is just him telling us.
This is Steve telling you, yeah.
Yeah.
This is just... But all such arguments are past us now. If we ever spat them out, it was long ago, in another age, when we both were younger than we thought we were. Something, Steve talking to Cam, something. I think you can take this bit away.
Yeah, definitely. No, these are the things, like at so many places you get to see him, addressing Cam. I don't know, it's so obvious to me. I don't know why Erikson said that it's not.
Which, should speak to the fact that I never considered that. I have my own take on things, which I brought to Steve, and Steve also said, I'm not thinking about that either. That alone should speak how many different ways you can view the Prelude, and it still makes sense narratively. Like,
it does.
Come the fuck on, dude.
Yeah, the next.
This tale shall be like Tiam herself, whom we know. We've heard of Tiam. You know Tiam, right?
Tiam is the multi-headed dragon.
She's a creature of many heads.
Yeah. And
which, by the way, Galan just okay. Well, I'll do away with this narrator. Galan is comparing his tail to a dragon goddess because arrogance.
No. It's because it comes up immediately after, but it's because I think it's the next. Yeah, go on.
It is in my nature to wear masks and to speak in a multitude of voices through lips not my own. Hi, Aristotle. So, basically, a poet throughout history, right? Any poet in any culture has to make characters, and in order to make a point, they have to assume the role of that character, right? You can't just be, well, you can't distance yourself from the character. Galan can just stay in the sideline and view everything along with you and just point to different parts. Like, look at these idiots. Look how they're gonna fucking kill one another. No. If he is to deliver a proper tale, he has to assume the role of these characters. He has to bring them to life before you. And that is within a poet's nature, as he says. Link in the doobly-doo about what I said about the Aristotle. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Even when I had sight, so homie's blind, snarky, sarcastic, derisive, cynical, and blind. Sounds a bit familiar at this point, I think, to any reader. To see through a single pair of eyes was a kind of torture, for I knew, I could feel in my soul, that we, with our single visions, miss most of the world. We cannot help it. It is our barrier to understanding.
So
Do you have
this
something
is
to add?
why, yeah, this is why he says that he's trying to take on TM because he's blind and he no longer has even that one set of eyes. Like, do you remember who was that in one of the Kachain Chamal who got the new set of eyes to help him or her fly? Like,
Guru? The Shigal guy? The flying guy? The assassin flying guy?
Yeah, the flying assassin.
Guru, yeah, okay.
So he has like two sets of eyes, right? So it helps him have it takes him some time to balance himself because I was reading that recently. So this is what came to mind. Like, he is trying to tell the tale like TM, not just arrogance, not just comparing himself to a dragon or anything, but also because he wants to have all these multiple sets of visions, multiple ways of viewing things. That's basically what he's trying to tell with the TM metaphor, plus arrogance. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for adding the last bit. Okay. Yeah, I agree, for sure. It's Steve is no stranger to adding multiple perspectives. Like, you should know this if you read the Book of the Fallen. You probably know that the guy is like bound to bring up lots of different points from lots of different characters, be it from the most central theme to the entire Book of the Fallen, which is like compassion and empathy, to more minimal themes like, I don't know, look at leather, for instance, or redemption and all the hounds, or like faith and love, or what have you. A lot of things.
And all those things, yeah, so much.
Galan now is going to take us to the next literal step of, I am going to be all these people that bring up these points. And he then amends this by saying that perhaps it is only the poets who truly represent this way of being. Maybe it's just a poet thing, because they, like most artists, there is this notion of a tortured artist in real life, right? How it's mostly a folk thing. It's not like any basis in reality that I know of. But that like psychologically tortured individuals generally make better artists, like from like painters and artists, sculptors to writers to poets. There was this notion of a tortured artist archetype of an individual. Again, absolutely no historical basis, completely like folk knowledge, but it's there, and Galan's playing with us that, you know, maybe poets are special in some way, and that makes them, by nature, resent the way of like viewing the world through only a single set of eyes. And what does he say next?
Sorry? Before that, because Erikson keeps talking about his writing style and how exactly he approaches writing and all that. And this is pretty much, I think, word to word what he says, that he takes on the character. So, I don't know, in AMAs and all, when people ask...
we asked him about this, didn't we?
Did we?
Yeah, we asked him. Yeah.
Oh,
that he has to let characters breathe and like have certain introspection moments.
No. I was trying to say that, like, if somebody asks, like, this death made me cry so much, and how did you feel writing it? And he said, whatever range of emotions you feel, definitely I have felt the same, and that's the only reason I was able to write it. So he does do that. He does get into the skin of the character and use that voice to talk. So that's the way this man writes, isn't it? That's the way he approaches writing. Okay, so the best line in the whole prelude, is it what?
Did you want to say it? Because I'm going to probably, yeah.
Yeah, go on.
No matter. What I do not recall, I shall invent.
Yeah, there. That's
and he just drops the mic, leaves the room, just like, goodbye, good day.
Yeah.
So, beyond the obvious that he just literally told you to your face that he is going to bullshit you, there is this interesting motif of memory and invention going hand in hand. What I do not recall, memory, I shall invent.
Yeah.
We talked about repeating motifs about truth earlier. This is another one, Truth. Fuck that. I'm going to make shit up. But it is also interesting in that he rejects this, what you mentioned earlier about memory bowing before invention, or the other way around. He transcends this sort of art style. He transcends this worldview in his tale. And he also says outright to your face that he's going to bullshit you. Because of course he is. So, yeah. It's definitely one of the more standout quotes in the whole Prelude, because, you know.
And if you think about it, at least in Gardens, there was a preface, right? Like the 10th anniversary edition had, and I think he gives you permission till read, like, by 30% you should know whether you're in or out. And he didn't even take that much time. He took one page to tell you that this is just going to be made up shit. So you decide if you want to read or not, right? It's just audacity. That's what it is. Right?
There are no singular tales. Again. A life in solitude is a life rushing to death. Ooh. What do you make of this, actually? I'm curious.
The way I was seeing this, it's probably something like, all these, because I know what is the next bit coming up. So I was thinking that if there is supposed to be a leader or someone of a particular, I don't know, like a high value character or someone, it is not possible for them to be isolated or alone. Something or the other drags them into the thick of things, and it just, rushes them to death. This is the way I was seeing this. A life in solitude is a life rushing to death. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. How do you see that?
So I think I wrote down, I also don't remember exactly what I wrote down, but my take was that people, humans, are pack creatures, right? Evolution has made us be social by design. I think it was my old friend Aristotle again that called humans a social being. It's translated better in Greek. It was either Aristotle or Plato. Doesn't matter. Some ancient Greek philosopher basically said that humans are by nature social beings. So by being alone, by being in solitude, is going against one's nature. And to defy nature, in this case, may not be the greatest option. Because in rejecting your own kind, foreshadowing, you basically, well, as he says, you rush to death. You're rejecting life. You're not going to live alone. By nature, you cannot live alone. You're not made to live alone. You are not a lonely creature. Go with others. Go with your kind. Be with your kind. Live with your kind. But a blind man will never rush. He but feels his way, as befits an uncertain world. See me then, as a metaphor made real.
You just really like that. See me then.
It's a great metaphor, right? Because he is blind, and he said it like thrice by now, and he uses "see me then" because he can't see himself, right? And you pointed out the metaphor about eyes and Tiam having multiple eyes and stuff.
So, yeah.
What do you make of this?
Right?
Before we go on.
I mean, for one, he's telling us that it's going to be a slow story. This is all I got from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's not going to, just abandon everything and start spouting shit. Even though he's saying that he's going to like make up things along the way, but he's not going to rush into the story. He's going to feel his way. It is an uncertain tale, right? So he's going to take his time and tell us a story. And I don't know, this is like probably like a half reassurance that it's still going to be a fine, okay type of story, rather than saying it's all, I'm just going to make up everything. I think that's the way I was seeing that. What about you?
So this gets brought up later again, I think. I don't quite remember entirely how it goes. But the short answer I gave was, well, for one, he's blind, right? So you can't see his surroundings. For two, the world itself is fairly uncertain in his worldview. Like for a poet who has seen all these different takes, all these different tales, all these different ways that events transpire, and all the different ways that events occur. Well, to be fair, it probably fucking terrifies him. Because the tale we're reading has transpired, right? We know what happened to Kharkanas. We know that this poet, Galan, went and heeded. it's shown even in like the flashback from Sandalath about how he took away his own eyes because he couldn't bear to see the world anymore. Because I think the quote goes something like, "What is broken cannot be mended, but that was not all. See now what you've done." And then he waits for someone like important, like Mother Dark, to walk in and swallow his own eyes. He is terrified of the world around him and the cruelty that can befall individuals when primal urges are unleashed. How can he rush forward into this uncertainty? How can he go forth into this world? Can you just leave everything behind? Just march past, sure off your frown with a box? No, he can't do that. Maybe you can. And I think he's jealous of you in a certain manner. But he's also derisive as fuck because, obviously. But it's that uncertainty that he plays with. And as you said, it's also not just how he feels, but how his story is going to be structured, It's uncertain. It's going to take its time. It's going to give you a lot of different perspectives. It's going to explore things from a lot of different viewpoints. Wait, don't rush. Give him time. Please, be patient. And then he uses name. How much is it? Hang on, let me actually see how long it takes in the book, because I have a PowerPoint slide.
It's like,
it takes the bastard in classic Erikson fashion.
A whole page. An entire page.
Yeah, it takes like a page and a half on my book to give us his name. That he is indeed the poet Galan. And by now, if you're paying attention and close reading this, you've probably guessed that. The blind, talking about being blind and whatnot. But that name should set off alarm bells to anyone who read the Book of the Fallen, because, first of all, the aforementioned Sheikh, the road to Galan, a Thai Sandy poet that swallowed his own eyes so they wouldn't see the world and whatnot. But there is also extra diegetic information. We'd never seen Galan on page beyond flashbacks and myths, right? We've not seen him as a character. We've seen Fisher. We know Fisher's out there. Intel the Hound. We've not seen Galan.
Yeah.
And so he's sort of an external narrator because he exists. He is extremely well renowned. He is in myths and legends and stuff. But we've not seen him. Which ties into something I've written and Dr. Steve about, which we'll leave the links in the description, but we're not going to do it here. Do you have anything to add to this about Galan?
No, this is fine. Yeah.
So he is the poet Galan, and his words will live forever. This is not a boast; it is a curse.
And this is not Galan. This is Erikson talking.
This is Steve. Yeah.
This next section, this whole next section, I don't know. I can just feel somewhat, Erikson just feels raw here. It feels so open, the way he's talking about what he's done so far. Because he told us that he started writing Kharkanas like 2 weeks after finishing
2 weeks,
Triple God.
Yeah, and he felt really insecure about it. And he didn't wait long enough. Yeah.
You can just feel the way. I mean, he would have had no idea 10 years back, having written like Guardians of the Moon, that he would reach this place, and you can just feel the whole journey in this next section.
I think he'd said that when he was writing the Crippled God, he was on a mission in Mongolia, and he got sick, and he had to leave immediately because, I quote, "If I didn't finish the book, people would round up about my grave and start pissing on it." Something like that, something to that effect.
Yeah.
And that he starts writing this book 2 weeks later in probably what is an extremely heightened emotional state. You can feel, just like how in All the Hounds you can feel his grief, here you can feel he's sick of this shit. Like, Galan is sick of this shit. He has seen these things transpire. He has been criticized of his work for 300,000 years. But damn it, why is nobody listening? And so he goes forth. My legacy is a carcass in waiting, and will be picked over until dust devours all there is. Ooh.
Like us? That's what we are doing? We are picking over the whole thing?
We are picking over. We are the audience, the emotions. And when my last breath is long gone, see how the flesh still moves. See how it flinches. Goddamn. That is a very... He's not being very charitable and not awfully optimistic.
He has seen other authors going through this stuff, isn't it? This is like a done thing. People have been doing this for centuries, isn't it? Pick over their writing and pick over their carcass, basically. So he knows that. He expects that.
When I began, I did not imagine finding my final moment here upon an altar beneath a hovering knife. I mean, god damn, dude, talk about optimism. I did not believe my life was a sacrifice, not to any greater cause, nor as payment into the hands of fame and respect. I did not think any sacrifice was necessary at all.
Yeah.
Fuck, dude.
Oh, this is a bit that always gets me. Yeah.
This is a diegetic way in which Erikson probably relates to problems, but also it makes sense for Gallant himself, right? Because
it does. That's the whole point, right? It makes perfect sense if you think about it as Gallant talking to Fisher, or if you just think about it as Erikson talking to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect. Yeah.
So to elaborate a bit on Gallant, his words have been recited quite a bit in the Book of the Fallen, even from gods like Male and Cruel, discussing like a crippled god. Mother Dark at some point maybe brings it up. Sandalath obviously brings it up. Shake bring it up. A whole bunch of things. And their meaning, his original meaning, is lost in translation, right? Because it's been so many years, and we've seen this theme brought up throughout the Book of the Fallen of people corrupting and changing and second guessing the sacred texts, quote unquote. You know, like, who knows what the original meaning of the sacred prayer was? I don't. Do they know? Maybe, maybe not. It lends itself to multiple interpretations, yes, but not all of those interpretations are equally valid. And in Gallant's case, that irks him.
Yeah.
You know, people using his poems and stuff to like justify being assholes probably irks him, right? Because not only did they not listen when he was giving warnings, right? When he made a symbol of his sacrifice beneath a hovering knife, right? When he swallowed his own fucking eyes, for fuck's sake, nobody listened. And now you have the audacity to try and pick over my carcass. Sort of. No one lets dead poets, not old poets, dead poets, lie in peace. We are like old meat on a crowded dinner table. Now comes the next course to jostle what's left of us, and even the gods despair of ever cleaning up the mess. And god damn it, dude, just some sunshine, please, I beg of you.
So,
I think the point I just made before still applies here. If you have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a continuation of him talking to Cam.
Him bitching.
No, I mean, he's telling Cam that we have become old meat, and unless I don't know, maybe it is like they have to keep being the next course, or they would just be like moved up to make way for the new course of food. I don't know. It's quite despairing. So it doesn't matter who says it or in what context. It's just, yeah. Yeah, the next one is nice. The next one is
yeah, at the very least, there's some optimism. But there are truths between poets, and we both know well or worth. It is the crystal with chew without end. Which
is that optimistic? It's not optimistic.
I don't
He's
know it's
calling
optimistic
truth as a gristle, which you can't really swallow. You're just going to keep chewing it with your it's not going to go down easy, right?
I mean, yeah,
I didn't find that optimistic at all.
Well, I think compared to saying, there's like no one, let's just die in peace and we're sacrifices and like old meat on a table, I think it's just saying we both know things about our poetry, about our art that others don't, that it matters to us. It's important to us, even if we can't swallow it down.
Or rather, this is all they're worth. I don't know.
Could be that. That is a very
pessimistic way of seeing it.
That is a pessimistic way of saying it, and I don't think Galan would agree with you, but it is a very valid way of saying it as well. Yeah. I think Galan will probably tell you, like, no, I am much more worthy than you. I make no common claim for myself.
I don't think Galan is like, he's not going to boost the value of his truth. He's going to call his truth as something worse, as something as,
I don't know about worse. I think he's trying to make it seem equally valid as everything else, but I don't think he's going to make it, like, belittle it further. Like, he's not going to say, oh, this is, like, worse. No, he's trying to prove a point by giving you his truth. He's not going to call it truth. Yes.
All I'm saying is that when you call something as a gristle, as opposed to, like the meat, so it's all the non-truths which is the meat. It's the actual truth is the gristle, which, you're not, it's not the fun part of food. Isn't it? I think that's what he's trying to say here, that it's just gristle. That's all we are worth. Whatever truths we have between us is not worth much. It's, that's the way I'm seeing that. Let's go on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of context. In case anyone like me didn't actually know this before. In American English, brave is generally considered to be a compliment. In British English, brave generally refers to something being idiotic or overconfident. Okay. So Galan goes forth and says that Anomanderis is a brave title.
Yeah. So.
And, okay, we know who wrote Anomanderis. We know who Anomanderis is about. And we know that a little bit before, our friend here, Galan, said that there are no singular tales twice. And while Anomanderis is not necessarily a singular tale, since that's where we learned about Brood the first time, his name is in the title. Who do you think it's going to be about? Right? So it's a pretty singular tale, which evidently our friend over here does not particularly like. But consider this. I was not always blind. It is not an Amander's tale alone. My story will not fit into a small box. Thus, Kharkanas, not an Amander's. Indeed, Anomander is perhaps the least of it. A man pushed from behind by many hands will go in but one direction, no matter what he wills.
Or I don't know. I think I discussed this with you about a particular character in this book, where a man who is pushed in all by many hands moves nowhere. He comes to a standstill. That's quite possible too. We'll get to that when we reach his character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what do we make of this? Beyond the references to a certain Aristotle I made earlier. Galan seems to have a bone to pick with Anomander? Maybe?
Yeah, to put it mildly, yeah.
So he does say in the Myths of the Shake that the only person whose commands he will accept is the quote-unquote winged grief, who is Silk as Ruin. I have no idea what that means, by the way. Don't ask me what that means. I do not know. I have not bothered to decode that symbolism. I have no idea what the fuck they're talking about.
I think we should. Yeah, when we reach that bit, yeah.
We're not going to get into this right now. Clearly, Galan does not hold Mother Dark in a particular reverent light, given what he did, with when Sandalaf came about. So he probably does not have much time for the Sons of Darkness, much less so ones that have allegedly drank of Valiant blood and then, brought about peace and unification by essentially killing everyone else. So, Galan here does not much like Anomander, it seems. And he then goes on to say that he may not credit him enough, but he has his reasons.
Yeah.
And
or it's rather,
yes.
It's like people who read Toll the Hounds and then immediately want to know everything about Anomander. Oh my god, I need to know his history and how he came about and how is he the son of darkness and all those things. It's those people where they pick up Forge of Darkness. They can read this and know that. No, you're not going to get much of Anomander. And our mutual friend, he knew it and he was still quite pissed off when Rake did not show up for quite a long time in this book. So even though he warns you, he's like straight up telling you this is not just his tale. He has reasons for including, like keeping him just one of many. But we're going to find out. We're going to read and find out those the reasons. Yeah?
No, you're not. You're not going to find out. He's not going to tell you. He's not going to tell you.
But see, that's the whole point. It's not a singular tale. What's the point of just talking about Anomander if you don't have the rest of the stories around him? Right? If you
I didn't disagree with you. I'm just saying you are not. He's not. Galan is not going to tell you why he doesn't like Anomander.
I mean, we can still find out. Oh, no, not that reason. Not the actual text answer. I'm telling you about why we're not going to get much of Anomander.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
sure.
talking about Erikson talking to us, not Galan talking to Fisher.
Right.
Yeah. You want to go on?
Sure. You mentioned earlier about what if Galan was a character in Kharkanas, I think.
Yeah.
And so he says, Mora asks, where is my place in this? It is nowhere.
And
Come
we've
to
already
Kharkanas.
established.
Yeah.
We've already established that Galan is a big fat liar. So I wouldn't be surprised if he pops up in Walk in Shadow. Right. Yeah,
Come to Kharkanas, here in my memory, in my creation. Again.
Yeah.
That, this fucking, it's so good, I'm sorry. Walk the hall of portraits and you will not find my face. Which is interesting, because Galan's a poet, and Fisher is a bard. And here, another art form is brought up, painting.
Yeah.
Right? In case it becomes important later in Kharkanas, so we're going to bring it on now. Is this what it is to be lost in the very world that made you, that holds your flesh? We're back to Galan being very optimistic. Excellent.
Yeah.
And so he ponders a little bit. He has a soliloquy, as if the entire Prelude is just monologuing, but he does go off a bit, and he almost breaks the fourth wall in a manner. He asks you, not Fisher, because he's talking to Fisher, right? But then he asks externally, do you, in your world, share my plight? Do you wander and wonder? Do you start at your own shadow, or awaken to rattling disbelief that this is all you are? Prospects bleak, bereft of the proof of your ambition, and god damn, talk about optimism.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to read this next bit because it's important. Or do you march past, sure of your own frown, and indeed, that is the fine box you carry. Am I the world's only lost soul? So, I'm going to ask you what you make of it first before I go off on my tangent, because it's quite long and it's quite important. Because it's, again, it's a fourth wall break. He's not talking to Fisher anymore. He's talking to you.
No, you could still keep it as him talking to Fisher, but it's just because it affects us so much that we're not seeing the fourth wall here. Because this is something we all do. We all wander and wonder and all that. So, what we're basically getting is that in Kharkanas, this place in his memory and in his creation, he basically does not exist. He has removed himself from his story of Kharkanas, right? Whether that, I'm not sure why exactly. I don't want to get into those, but he is not present in this tale. Yeah, and this makes him...
No, carry on.
I completely disagree with that link you're going to add, but still, he's saying, oh God, he's just saying that he is not present in this tale. In this story, he has removed himself. Okay? and he feels lost, even in this own world, which how would you feel that you're present, but there is no proof of your existence here? Like, if you have nothing to show the world, like, there is no proof of your ambition, and you have no prospects of, having any proof of your ambition. And oh God, this is like depressing to just talk. But imagine how you feel, and do you feel these things in your world? That's what Galan wants to know. Or if you're not that sort of a person, you're the sort of person who fits everything into neat little boxes and knows exactly how the universe works and knows precisely what's going to happen next and all that. And, they have important things to do and places which will not survive if they don't arrive and all those things. Then that's a different sort of person. Galan is not that person. And the way the words are being used here, the way he's asking these questions, it's if you do have a fine box, then you're not going to enjoy the rest of this book, right? He's just straight up telling you that unless you share my plight, what's the point? He's not the only lost soul in this world, isn't it? Yeah. So that's the way I'm seeing that. How do you see it?
I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm just going to offer another viewing, because I do think basically any way you view the Prelude is probably going to be valid in some way. So my take on it was, Galan is, I mentioned earlier that he is terrified of the world. I think here he's sort of terrified of self-introspection. There is this notion in philosophy of like know thyself, and probably a few Latin words that I don't remember now, of self-introspection and knowing oneself and knowing one's capabilities, one's ambitions, one's, prospects. And it can at times be very difficult to properly be critical of oneself and to be accurately judgmental and to be fair. Not give yourself an unfair advantage or an unfair disadvantage. And looking into his soul, Galan's terrified. He's gone. He's lost. No one remembers him beyond what little he left from poems, right? He's been constantly jostled and picked over. Who remembers Galan for his strength of character? We see very readily here. Who remembers Galan for his other contributions as essential to the court mages in Kharkanas that we don't have to shake? Is that true? Is any of this whole thing true? Who knows? And that's probably scares him. That, I'm lost. I'm a lost soul. I look into myself and I don't see anything, because who is to tell me that there's something there? And what are these idiots that don't bother at all? Like, what are these people who are completely lacking in self-introspection? Like, yeah, whatever. This is fine. I'm perfect. This is completely fine. Screw the world. I'm going to put it all in a small box. I'm going to fit the totality of the universe in a neat little wooden box, tuck it under one arm, march past, sure of my frown. This tale is not going to work for you, because it's not going to square up. It's not going to make sense if you try to cross-reference it, because I am actively going to make things up and recall things differently to make a point. But even then, why does that matter? Look inward. Don't look out. Don't look into the weft of details making up the weft of the world. Look inward. Try and understand and comprehend the themes of what is being recited to you. And then, of course, because Galan's a dipshit, he laughs at you in your face. Do not begrudge my spy at that. I, too, cannot be made to fit into that small box, though many will try. Now, best discard me entire, if peace of mind is desired. Which is what Mora said, right? That if you have small boxes, he's not going to fit in there. This story is not going to work for you. So you have to approach it in a certain manner for it to make sense.
Or rather, this is like the weakest sales pitch for any book. Just don't buy this if you're looking for peace of mind. It's just... Oh. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Go on.
And as aforementioned, Galan's a fucking pathological liar, and then it goes on to bring up a metaphor from earlier about being old meat on a dinner table.
Yeah.
The table is crowded, the feast unending. Join me upon it amidst the wretched scatter in heaps. The audience is hungry, and its hunger is endless. And for that, we are thankful. And if I spoke of sacrifices, I lied.
I lied.
Dipshit.
It's like 2 pages in, and he's already like lied so many times.
I'm curious what you think through your lens of Steve speaking to you.
In this one,
Yeah.
this is just him. I don't know, like how would you say it? It's extremely contradictory for him, right? He's thankful the audience likes him enough to hound him to keep writing fast. But it's also it's not a fun feeling, right? To have people constantly badgering you about when is the next book coming and what's happening next and all those things. I don't know. He's probably torn, isn't it? That's the way I see it. Like, he can't really complain about it. He doesn't even want to complain. But it is. I'm sure it's not fun to be on a crowded table, right? That's the way
I
I'm
guess
seeing
so.
it.
I wouldn't know.
And-
I'm not a writer.
No, I mean that's how I see this. As Steve telling us that he knows the audience has endless hunger, but he's thankful for it, and whatever bitching about. I didn't know that I had to sacrifice stuff and all that, and he's just saying, "No, I lied. I don't mean that I want the sacrifices," and even that is pretty much a lie. But this is like such a
So he's
sliding.
lying about sacrificing things.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah, I know.
And then people say they read and enjoy this book. Like, how can you enjoy this? This is so self-contradictory. It's absurd.
But one of my favorite quotes by Erikson in one of his interviews is like, he says something like, "I'm extremely comfortable with contradiction," and that speaks to me. Like, it shows. I mean, you have to be at some point. You have to be okay with contradiction, right? Like, not everything is going to be binary. There are going to be contradictory people and contradictory things, and you have to be comfortable with that, right? Go on. The last bit. We're going to.
Remember well this tale I tell, Fisher Keltas. Should you err, the list makers lead you alive. Absolutely no points for guessing who list makers are, by the way.
It's his box carriers. Yeah.
It's I think what he refers to by list makers is he spoke about themes being lists of composite of lists being endlessly, how was it, unerringly rendered and something else. So I think it's people who like disregard themes in spite of details. So if you fuck this up, they're gonna hound you to death because you missed some minor tiny detail. And can you please stop bugging me about it? It's not on purpose, but it doesn't matter. Please.
Yeah. So until this last line of the prelude, we don't really know who he's talking to.
We have vague ideas, but he's not like in the diegesis. We don't ever get to see Fisher's responses ever throughout both books.
Oh,
Fisher never speaks. There is the epigraph of Walk in Shadow is attributed to Fisher, so it is his voice. But until then, nothing. Not a single time. Oh. We get to see Galan's responses to Fisher, but we don't see Galan Fisher speaking himself.
Yep.
So I'm just bringing that up in case it's important. Anyhow.
Yeah.
I believe we're done with the prelude. That was, what was it, a page and a half, 2 pages? And it took us an hour. So, we like to take our time with these things.
No, it's just the prelude is especially well written. So, we have to do justice to it. Yeah. Okay.
And so, we've not touched on characters outside from the Prelude. It's just these two guys, and we had so much to talk about. So as you can probably imagine, this might get a bit difficult in the long run. But this is pretty much the format which we are seeking to employ. About an hour for discussion on 2 chapters a week. Ideally, and I say ideally because I don't think we'll make it, touching on most of the thematic elements of. And we're back from momentary technical difficulties. So we were saying that this is basically going to be the format. Probably about an hour for discussions. Ideally, thematic exploration, not so much plot because we kind of know what the plot's going to be. Not so much about the plot, but mostly character and thematic exploration of how Erikson and how Galan portrays these characters. And ideally, maybe, possibly, we are going to have Erikson at the end of book discussions. So when we finish Forge of Darkness, we'll try and arrange an interview. No promises.
Hopefully, yeah.
Fingers crossed, all of that. In any case, this wraps up about an hour-long episode on the Forge of Darkness. So, if you stuck with us until now, thank you so very much for watching. I have been Lee.
I'm Mora, and have a good night.
Good night.